My name is Brooke, and I am 28 years old. I am the oldest child in my family, currently sorting through my belongings in my childhood bedroom. My phone rings. It is my mother with a shocking request. She wants me to move out of our family home but continue paying rent for my room so my brother Jake can move in after graduation. Jake is 24 and apparently needs my space temporarily. Our family dynamics have always been complicated. Before I tell you how my life turned upside down, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you have ever felt like the forgotten child in your family. I grew up in a middle-class suburban neighborhood just outside of Chicago. My father, Thomas, is 55 and works as a mid-level manager at an insurance company. He has been with the same firm for over 20 years and takes great pride in his steady career. My mother, Diana, is 52 and teaches 4th grade at the local elementary school. She is passionate about education and often spends evenings grading papers or preparing lesson plans for her students. Our house is a comfortable 4-bedroom home on a quiet street lined with maple trees. It is the only home I have known filled with memories, both good and painful. The kitchen, with its outdated oak cabinets, has been the setting for countless family dinners. The backyard, with its small patio, was where we had summer barbecues and birthday celebrations. My bedroom on the 2nd floor has pale blue walls that I chose when I was 13, and a window seat where I spent hours reading books and dreaming of my future. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. I maintained a 3.8 GPA throughout high school, participated in debate club, and worked part-time at the local library. I pursued a degree in finance at the state university, graduating with honors despite working 20 hours weekly to help cover expenses. After college, I secured a position at a local bank as a financial analyst. It was not my dream job, but it paid the bills and offered stability. Jake, my younger brother, has always been the golden child of our family. 4 years younger than me, he excelled at everything without seeming to try. He was the star quarterback on his high school football team, maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA, and was voted most likely to succeed by his classmates. Recently, he graduated from an Ivy League university with a business degree, his tuition fully covered by our parents, and partial athletic scholarships. The difference in how our parents treated us was subtle at first, but became more obvious as we grew older. When I brought home an A-, my father would ask why it was not an A+. When Jake brought home a B+, my mother would praise him for balancing academics with his athletic commitments. My achievements were expected while his were celebrated. I remember my 16th birthday falling on the same day as one of Jake's important football games. Instead of the dinner celebration that had been promised, we had a quick lunch before spending 5 hours at the stadium cheering for Jake. My parents bought me a gift card to my favorite bookstore, but gave Jake a new gaming console when he scored the winning touchdown, claiming he deserved a reward for his hard work. When I expressed interest in journalism, my true passion, my parents discouraged me, insisting that finance would provide better job security. Meanwhile, they encouraged Jake to follow his dreams regardless of practicality. These small incidents accumulated over the years, creating a persistent feeling that I was somehow less important, less worthy of their attention and support. 6 months ago, my life took an unexpected turn. The bank where I worked underwent a major restructuring, and my entire department was eliminated. Despite my excellent performance reviews, I found myself suddenly unemployed with 3 months of savings and substantial student loan debt. After weeks of unsuccessful job hunting and watching my savings dwindle, I made the difficult decision to move back home. The arrangement seemed reasonable at the time. I would pay $600 monthly rent while living with my parents, significantly less than market rate for an apartment in our area, but still contributing to household expenses. The agreement was that this would be temporary until I found another job in my field. I expected to stay for 2 or 3 months at most. During this time, I tried to repair my relationship with my parents. I cooked dinner several nights a week, helped my mother with household chores, and spent evenings watching my father's favorite game shows with him. There were moments when it felt like we were connecting in ways we had not since my childhood. I began to hope that perhaps this unexpected setback might have a silver lining in healing old wounds. Little did I know that those moments of connection were about to be shattered by an unimaginable betrayal. The evening after my mother's phone call, I sat at our kitchen table picking at my dinner. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. My father cleared his throat, a sign that he was about to make an important announcement. "Brooke, your mother and I need to discuss something important with you," he said, folding his napkin precisely as he always did when nervous. "Jake will be moving back home after graduation next month. He needs your room since it is the largest one aside from the master bedroom." I set down my fork, trying to process this information. "So, you want me to move to the guest room?" "That is fine. I can make that work." My mother shook her head, her expression a mixture of determination and discomfort. "No, honey. We need you to find your own apartment. The guest room will be converted into a home office space. But," my father added quickly, "we would like you to continue paying the $600 rent for your old room, just until Jake finds a job and gets on his feet." The request hit me like a physical blow. I stared at them, certain I had misheard. "You want me to move out but keep paying rent for a room I am not living in so Jake can live here for free?" "You are 28, Brooke," my mother said, her voice taking on that familiar dismissive tone she used whenever I questioned their decisions. "It is time you were fully independent anyway. Jake is still young and needs our support to get established." My father nodded in agreement. "You have been here long enough. Our arrangement was always meant to be temporary, remember." "It has only been 6 months," I countered, struggling to keep my voice steady. "And I have been paying rent the entire time. I am still actively looking for a job in finance, which has not been easy given the current market. I have had multiple interviews but no offers yet." "That is not our problem," my mother said, her words sharp and unexpected. "Jake has just graduated and needs to focus on his startup ideas. Your room is perfect for him because it has the best natural light and enough space for his equipment." The unfairness of the situation made my chest tight with anger. "So, let me get this straight. I pay $600 monthly to live here. Jake pays nothing. Now you want me to move out, continue paying that money, while Jake lives in my room for free?" "When you put it that way, it sounds bad," my father said, frowning. "Think of it as helping your brother during his transition." "What about my transition?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I lost my job. I am trying to rebuild my career." "Why am I expected to support Jake financially when you never asked him to support me?" My mother's face hardened. "This is exactly the problem, Brooke. You have always been selfish and competitive with your brother. You never think about what he needs." "Selfish?" The accusation stung like a slap. "How am I being selfish by questioning why I should pay rent for a room I am not living in? That makes no sense logically or financially." "We have made our decision," my father said firmly. "Jake moves in next month. You have 4 weeks to find a new place." I pushed my chair back from the table, appetite completely gone. "And if I refuse to keep paying after I move out?" My parents exchanged a look I could not quite interpret. "Then we would be very disappointed in you," my mother said quietly. "Family supports family, Brooke. We thought we raised you better than this." The manipulation was so transparent it was almost laughable. Almost. Instead, it made me feel sick to my stomach. Without another word, I stood up and left the dining room, my dinner, half eaten, on the plate. Behind me, I heard my mother sigh dramatically and mutter something about my attitude problem. In the privacy of my room, I sat on my bed, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The room I had grown up in, with its faded posters and bookshelf full of novels and finance textbooks, suddenly felt alien to me. This was no longer my sanctuary. According to my parents, it would soon belong to Jake, while I would be expected to fund his comfortable living situation. I pulled out my laptop and began searching apartment listings, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The cheapest studio apartments in safe neighborhoods were at least $900 monthly, not including utilities. Moving would mean spending at least $300 more each month, plus paying the $600 to my parents. It was financially impossible with my current part-time barista job. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying the conversation and thinking of all the things I should have said. By morning, my sadness had crystallized into determination. This was not just about a room or money. It was about recognizing a pattern of unfairness that had defined my entire relationship with my family. It was time to take a stand. The job market for finance professionals in our area had become increasingly competitive over the past year. Major banks and investment firms had conducted rounds of layoffs, flooding the market with experienced candidates. As someone with only 4 years of professional experience, I found myself consistently overlooked in favor of applicants with longer resumes or more specialized skills. Over the previous 6 months, I had applied to 153 positions, carefully tailoring each cover letter and resumed to highlight relevant experience. 20 of those applications had resulted in interviews ranging from brief phone screenings to multiple rounds of panel interviews. Despite positive feedback, I had received no job offers. We went with a candidate who had more experience in regulatory compliance. One hiring manager told me kindly during a follow-up call, "Your qualifications are impressive, but we found someone who is a better culture fit," explained another. Each rejection chipped away at my confidence, but I refused to give up. I enrolled in online courses to learn SQL and data visualization skills that were increasingly demanded in financial analysis roles. In the meantime, I worked 25 hours weekly at Moonbeam Coffee, a local cafe where the flexible schedule allowed me to attend interviews and networking events. The job paid $14 per hour, plus tips enough to cover my $600 rent payment to my parents and contribute to my student loan payments, but little else. My savings had dwindled to less than $1,000, barely enough for a security deposit on a new apartment, let alone first and last month's rent. One Wednesday afternoon, I returned home early from a disappointing interview. The house was empty, my parents both still at work. As I passed my mother's bedroom, I noticed her phone on the dresser screen lit up with incoming text messages. I did not normally invade others' privacy, but a name caught my eye. Jake. The message preview read, "Thanks, Mom, can't wait to set up my startup office in Brooke's room. The guys are excited to—" I froze, staring at those words. Startup office. The guys. This contradicted everything my parents had told me about Jake needing a place to live. With trembling fingers, I picked up the phone. The passcode was the same it had been for years, Jake's birthday. The full message appeared. "Thanks, Mom. Can't wait to set up my startup office in Brooke's room. The guys are excited to have a headquarters for our gaming company. We'll pay you back when we get our first investors." I scrolled up through their conversation, each message revealing more of the truth. Jake did not need a place to live. He wanted my room as an office space for a gaming startup he was launching with college friends. And my parents were not only giving him the space for free, but expecting me to subsidize it by continuing to pay rent. My hands shaking with anger, I continued searching through my mother's phone. There had to be more to this story. I opened her email app and searched for Jake's name, finding correspondence with his university's financial aid office. As I read through the messages, another shocking truth emerged. My parents had paid Jake's full tuition for all 4 years, covering what his scholarships did not. This was a startling revelation. When I attended college, my parents had contributed only minimally to my education expenses, claiming financial constraints. I had worked throughout my studies and taken out substantial student loans that I was still paying off. Yet somehow, those financial constraints had disappeared when it came to Jake's education. Further searching revealed an email from a prestigious financial firm forwarded from Jake to my mother. It was a job offer with an impressive starting salary of $78,000 annually, which Jake had apparently declined. His accompanying message read, "Turning this down to focus on the startup. Glad you and Dad support my decision to follow my passion instead." The hypocrisy was stunning. When I was 18 and passionate about journalism, my parents had pressured me into studying finance because it was practical and secure. They had insisted I could not afford to pursue a risky career in a competitive field. Yet here they were fully supporting Jake's decision to turn down a lucrative job offer to pursue an uncertain venture. I replaced the phone exactly as I had found it and went to my room, mind racing. Everything I thought I knew about my family's financial situation and their treatment of Jake and me was being rewritten. The preferential treatment was not just in small, everyday interactions. It extended to major life decisions and significant financial support. That evening, I called my former college roommate Sophia, one of the few people who truly understood my family dynamics, having witnessed them firsthand during holidays and campus visits. "They have been lying to me for years," I told her, voice breaking despite my attempts to stay composed. "They made me believe we could not afford certain things that I needed to be responsible and practical. But with Jake, money is no object. His dreams are worth investing in. Mine were just impractical fantasies." "This is not about the room anymore, is it?" Sophia asked gently. "No," I replied after a moment. "It is about finally seeing the truth. I have spent my entire life trying to earn their approval, thinking if I just worked hard enough, was responsible enough, they would value me the way they value Jake. But now I see that nothing I do will ever be enough." As I spoke these words aloud, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and throbbing, but alongside it was something new. A determination to stop seeking validation from people who would never give it, regardless of what I achieved. That night, I made a decision. I would confront my family with what I had discovered. No more accepting their explanations or making excuses for their behavior. It was time for the truth to come out, whatever the consequences might be. The following Sunday, I asked my parents to sit down for a family meeting in our living room. The formal request itself was unusual enough that they agreed without question. I had spent the past 3 days gathering evidence and organizing my thoughts, determined to approach this confrontation with clear facts rather than just emotions. My father sat in his favorite recliner, newspaper set aside, but within reach, as if he expected this conversation to be brief. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa, checking her watch, subtly, probably thinking about the Sunday dinner she needed to prepare. "I appreciate you both taking the time for this," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I have discovered some information that we need to discuss regarding Jake, my room, and the financial arrangements in this family." My father's eyebrows rose. "What kind of information?" "I know the truth about why Jake wants my room," I said directly. "It is not because he needs a place to live. He wants to use it as an office for his gaming startup." My mother's face flushed slightly, but her expression remained defiant. "How would you know that?" "I saw his texts," I admitted. "I also found out that you paid his full college tuition while telling me you could not help with mine, and that he turned down a job offer to pursue this startup with your full support." "You went through my phone." My mother's voice rose with indignation. "That is a violation of privacy." "Yes, it was," I acknowledged, "and I am not proud of that. But what about the violation of trust in lying to me about why I need to move out while continuing to pay rent? What about the years of telling me you could not afford to help with my education while fully funding Jake's?" My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "The situations are different, Brooke. Jake has more potential in his field. His business degree from an Ivy League school opens doors that your state university degree does not. His words struck like a physical blow. More potential. I graduated with honors while working part-time. I maintained a 3.8 GPA. How does Jake have more potential than me? That is not what your father meant, my mother interjected quickly. But boys often need more support to succeed. You have always been independent and capable. Jake needs guidance and resources to reach his full potential. I stared at them, stunned by the blatant sexism in her statement. So because I am a woman, I deserve less support? Because I worked hard and was responsible, I get punished while Jake gets rewarded for doing the minimum? No one is punishing you, my father said, his tone growing irritated. You are twisting our words. The fact is, Jake has an opportunity to build something significant with this startup. As his family, we want to support that. And what about my opportunities? I countered. When I wanted to study journalism, you told me it was too competitive and impractical. You pushed me toward finance because it was secure. Now Jake wants to start a gaming company with no experience, and that gets your full emotional and financial backing. Before either could respond, the front door opened and Jake walked in. His timing could not have been worse, or perhaps better, depending on how you looked at it. He stood in the doorway, taking in the tense scene. What is going on? He asked, dropping his backpack on the floor. Your sister is upset about the room situation. My mother explained quickly, her voice softening as she addressed her son. She feels it is unfair. Jake looked at me with an expression of entitlement that I had never fully recognized before. Come on, Brooke. It is just a room. You are moving out anyway, right? My friends and I need a base for our company, and that corner bedroom has the best setup for our equipment. So you admit it, I said, looking directly at him. This is not about you needing a place to live. It is about wanting a free office space, one that I am expected to pay for while I live somewhere else. Jake at least had the grace to look momentarily uncomfortable. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. But Mom and Dad said it was fine. Besides, you have a job. I have a part-time job at a coffee shop because I got laid off, I corrected him. I am barely making ends meet while looking for a position in my field. Meanwhile, you turned down a $78,000 job offer to pursue this startup with no business plan or experience. Jake's eyes widened. How do you know about that? That is not important, I said, then turned back to my parents. What is important is understanding why you two have consistently prioritized Jake's needs and wants over mine. Why his dreams deserve support while mine were dismissed. Why I am expected to continue paying rent for a room I will not be living in. My mother stood up, her face flushed with anger now. Because that is what family does, Brooke. We support each other. Your father and I have supported you your entire life. Now it is your turn to help your brother. When has Jake ever been asked to support me? I challenged. When I lost my job, did you suggest he contribute financially to help me? No, you charged me rent to live in my childhood bedroom. There was a moment of tense silence before my mother dropped the final bomb. We have been using your rent money to invest in Jake's startup anyway. So really, you have already been supporting his business. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. For 6 months, I had been struggling to make that rent payment, often picking up extra shifts and skipping meals to ensure I could contribute to the household. All that time, my money had been going directly to fund Jake's venture. You have been using my rent money for Jake's business without telling me. My voice was barely above a whisper now. That is not just unfair. It is a betrayal. It is not a betrayal to support your brother's future, my father insisted, though he could not quite meet my eyes. Jake's success will benefit the whole family. And my success would not. The question hung in the air, unanswered. Jake, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. Look, I did not know they were using your rent money. That is between you and them. But I do need that room, Brooke. My friends are counting on this space. We have equipment being delivered next week. The casual entitlement in his voice was the final straw. Years of suppressed feelings erupted as I stood to face my family. I have spent my entire life trying to make you proud, trying to be the responsible one, the one who makes smart choices and never asks for too much. And what has it gotten me? A family that takes my money to fund the dreams of their favorite child, while expecting me to quietly disappear when convenient. Tears threatened, but I forced them back. I will not be paying another cent for a room I am not living in. I will not continue to subsidize Jake's startup or his lifestyle. And most importantly, I will not keep pretending that this family treats us equally when that has never been true. My parents looked genuinely shocked, as if they had never expected me to stand up for myself. Jake appeared confused, perhaps truly unaware of the depth of the inequality that had shaped our family dynamics. "If you refuse to pay, where will you go?" My mother asked, her tone suggesting I had no viable alternatives. "Anywhere but here," I replied, a strange calm settling over me despite the turmoil. I would rather sleep on a friend's couch than continue to be exploited by my own family. With those words, I turned and walked upstairs to my room, shutting the door firmly behind me. My hands were shaking, my heart racing, but beneath the adrenaline was something unexpected. Relief. For the first time in years, perhaps in my entire life, I had spoken my truth without filtering it to please my parents or avoid rocking the boat. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I could no longer live under this roof or maintain the status quo in our family relationships. It was time for a change, however difficult and uncertain the path forward might be. That night, I packed 2 suitcases with essential clothing, important documents, my laptop, and a few cherished possessions. Everything else would have to wait. My priority was getting out of that house and establishing some distance from the toxic dynamics that had shaped my life for too long. With trembling fingers, I called Sophia. "Can I crash on your couch for a few days? Things have imploded with my family." "Of course," she answered without hesitation. "Do you need me to come get you?" An hour later, I carried my suitcases down the stairs. My parents watched from the living room doorway, expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. They had clearly never expected me to actually leave, especially not that night. "You are being dramatic," my mother said, arms crossed. "Where will you go? How will you afford an apartment?" "I will figure it out," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I always do." The night air was cool against my face as I stepped outside, a strange sense of liberation mixing with the fear of uncertainty. Sophia's compact car idled at the curb, her concerned face visible through the windshield. As I loaded my suitcases into her trunk, I glanced back at the house one last time. Through the window, I could see my father turn away, while my mother remained, watching, her expression unreadable in the darkness. Sophia's apartment was a small 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an older building downtown. The living room where I would be sleeping doubled as her home office, with a desk crammed into one corner and art supplies scattered across various surfaces. She was 27, only a year younger than me, but seemed light years ahead in terms of independence and self-assurance. "It is not much," she said apologetically as she cleared space on her sofa. "But you can stay as long as you need." That first night on her lumpy couch, surrounded by the unfamiliar sounds of a downtown apartment building, I lay awake wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. Had I overreacted? Would this rash decision damage my relationship with my family beyond repair? But beneath those anxious thoughts was a quiet conviction that I had done the only thing possible to preserve my self-respect. The following days blurred together as I adjusted to my new reality. I picked up additional shifts at the coffee shop and secured a weekend position at a retail store in the mall, bringing my weekly work hours to nearly 50. The physical exhaustion was preferable to dwelling on my situation. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my parents, alternating between guilt trips, demands for rent money, and threats about potential legal action if I did not fulfill my obligations. I ignored most, responding only to clarify that I would not be paying for a room I was not occupying. After 2 weeks of this bombardment, Sophia suggested I consult her friend Taylor, who worked at a small law firm specializing in tenant rights. Though I was hesitant to involve others in my family drama, the escalating threats from my parents convinced me to seek professional advice. Taylor met me during her lunch break, reviewing the situation with calm efficiency. "Without a written lease agreement, they have very little legal ground to stand on," she explained. "They cannot force you to pay rent for a space you are not occupying, especially given the circumstances." Her confidence helped ease my anxiety, though the emotional toll remained heavy. "They keep saying I am abandoning my family that I owe them for raising me." Taylor's expression softened. "Parenthood is not a transaction, Brooke. You do not owe them financial compensation for doing what parents are supposed to do. And using your rent money to fund your brother's business without your knowledge borders on financial exploitation." Armed with this reassurance, I sent a final message to my parents, clearly stating that I would not be paying any further rent and asking them to respect my decision to distance myself. The threatening messages slowed after that, though they did not stop entirely. 3 weeks after leaving home, something unexpected happened. Through Sophia's professional network as a graphic designer, I was introduced to Martin Reeves, the founder of Pinnacle Financial Planning, a boutique firm expanding its client services division. "Sophia showed me your resume," Martin said when we met for coffee. "Your experience in banking and financial analysis is exactly what we are looking for. We need someone who can translate complex financial data into actionable advice for our clients." The interview was unlike any I had experienced before. Rather than focusing on my employment gap or asking standard questions, Martin engaged me in a conversation about financial trends and client psychology. By the end of our meeting, he offered me a position as a junior financial advisor with a starting salary of $55,000, significantly less than my previous banking position, but with potential for growth. "I cannot promise you will get rich working here," Martin said candidly. "But I can promise you will learn more in 6 months with us than you did in 4 years at that bank. And if you perform well, your compensation will reflect that." I accepted on the spot, tears of relief threatening to spill. That evening, I celebrated with Sophia, splurging on takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. For the first time since losing my job, I felt a flicker of hope for the future. "To new beginnings," Sophia toasted, raising her glass of inexpensive wine. "And to true friends," I added, overwhelmed with gratitude for her unwavering support. With steady income now a reality, I began apartment hunting in earnest. After viewing several depressing options well above my budget, I found a studio apartment in an older building, just 3 blocks from my new office. The space was tiny, barely 400 square feet, with a kitchenette along one wall and a bathroom so small you could brush your teeth while showering. But it was mine, a space where I could begin rebuilding my life on my own terms. 3 months after walking out of my parents' house, I had established a new routine. Weekdays were spent at Pinnacle Financial, where I was gradually building a small client base of young professionals and retirees. My evenings were dedicated to an online course in certified financial planning, an investment in my future career prospects. The coffee shop job was behind me, though. I still worked occasional weekend shifts at the retail store to build my emergency fund more quickly. My studio apartment, though small, had become a sanctuary. I had furnished it minimally with second-hand finds and a few carefully chosen new items, including a comfortable mattress that transformed into a sofa during the day and a small dining table that doubled as a desk. The walls were painted a soft sage green that made the space feel larger and more peaceful than the stark white it had been when I moved in. One evening, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. It turned out to be Mrs. Patterson, my parents' next-door neighbor for the past 15 years. "Brooke, dear, I hope you do not mind me calling," she said after I answered. "Your mother gave me your number months ago for the neighborhood watch list, and I never removed it. I was wondering how you are doing. We have not seen you around the house lately." The genuine concern in her voice was touching. Mrs. Patterson had always been kind to me, often sharing cookies or garden vegetables when I was growing up. I gave her a condensed version of recent events, careful not to vilify my family despite the circumstances. "Oh my," she said when I finished. "I had no idea. That explains the young men coming and going from your parents' house with computer equipment. Your brother's startup did not last very long, I am afraid." This was news to me. "What do you mean?" "Well, there was a flurry of activity for a few weeks with Jake and several other young men setting up computers in what used to be your room. They put up a sign in the window, something about Nexus Gaming Innovations. But after about 2 months, the sign came down and the young men stopped coming. I ran into your mother at the supermarket last week, and she mentioned that Jake was struggling with some disappointment. Reading between the lines, I gather the business venture did not work out." I absorbed this information silently. Part of me felt a twinge of satisfaction that Jake's startup, which had been prioritized over my basic need for fairness and respect, had failed so quickly. But another part felt sympathy for my brother, who had likely been set up for failure by our parents' excessive coddling. "Your brother seems to be taking it hard," Mrs. Patterson continued. "I have seen him around the neighborhood looking quite down. Your father mentioned to my husband that Jake might be experiencing some mild depression." After thanking Mrs. Patterson for the update and promising to stay in touch, I sat on my small balcony watching the city lights come on as dusk settled. I wondered if my parents blamed me for Jake's failure, if they had convinced themselves that his startup would have succeeded, if only I had agreed to their unreasonable demands. The answer came 3 days later in the form of a phone call from my father, the first direct contact from either parent in nearly 3 months. "Brooke," he said when I answered, his voice carrying its usual authoritative tone despite the circumstances. "I hope you are doing well." "I am," I replied, keeping my response intentionally brief. "Good, good." He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Listen, I am calling because Jake is having a difficult time. His business venture did not work out as planned, and he is struggling to find direction. Your mother and I thought perhaps you could help him with his job search given your experience. Maybe introduce him to some contacts in the financial world." I nearly laughed at the audacity of the request. After everything that had happened, my father's first contact was not to apologize or make amends, but to ask for another favor for Jake. "Let me understand," I said slowly. "You have not spoken to me in 3 months. You tried to make me pay rent for a room I was not living in. You used my previous rent payments to fund Jake's failed startup without my knowledge or consent. And now you are calling to ask me to help Jake find a job." There was a pause before my father responded, his tone defensive. "Family helps family, Brooke. Despite our disagreements, Jake is still your brother." "Yes, he is," I agreed, "and I wish him well, but I am not in a position to help him right now. I am focusing on building my own career and life. I would suggest Jake apply for jobs online and work with campus career services like most recent graduates do." This is exactly the kind of selfishness that caused problems before. My father began, but I cut him off. "No, Dad. Setting healthy boundaries is not selfish. I am sorry Jake is struggling, but I need to prioritize my own well-being right now. I hope you can understand that." After ending the call, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Sadness that my father still viewed me primarily as a resource to help Jake, pride that I had maintained my boundaries without resorting to anger or accusations, and a quiet realization that my relationship with my parents might never be what I had hoped for as a child. At Pinnacle Financial, I was developing a positive mentoring relationship with Daniel Hayes, a 32-year-old senior advisor who had taken me under his wing. Daniel recognized potential in me that my own family had never acknowledged, assigning me challenging projects and providing constructive feedback on my work. "You have good instincts for this business," he told me after I successfully helped a client restructure their retirement portfolio. "You balance analytical thinking with genuine empathy for clients' concerns. That is a rare combination." His praise meant more to me than he could possibly know. After years of feeling perpetually inadequate in my family's eyes, being valued for my professional contributions was healing in ways I had not anticipated. 6 months after joining Pinnacle, I was assigned my first major client, a local business owner looking to develop a succession plan for his manufacturing company. The responsibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. I spent evenings researching similar cases and developing a comprehensive proposal that addressed both the financial and emotional aspects of transitioning a family business to the next generation. When the client signed off on my recommendations, Martin called me into his office. "Impressive work, Brooke. We are promoting you to full financial advisor status with a 15% salary increase effective immediately." Through Sophia, I had also connected with a group of women who had experienced similar family dynamics. What began as casual conversations over coffee evolved into an informal support network meeting twice monthly to share experiences and coping strategies. These women, all successful in their respective fields despite family backgrounds that had undermined rather than supported their ambitions, became an important part of my new life. The hardest part, shared Lisa, a pediatrician who had been written out of her parents' will after choosing medical school over the family restaurant business, is accepting that you cannot make them see your worth. Your value exists independently of their recognition. Her words resonated deeply with me. Gradually, I was learning to define my worth through my own accomplishments and character, rather than through my family's validation. It was a painful process of growth, but necessary for building a healthier future. 1 year after the night I left my parents' house with 2 suitcases and an uncertain future, my life had transformed in ways I could never have predicted. My position at Pinnacle Financial had evolved to include managing our newer clients and developing financial education workshops for young professionals. The small studio apartment had been replaced by a 1-bedroom in a newer building, still modest but with enough space for a proper desk and a comfortable reading corner. Most significantly, I had developed a sense of confidence and self-assurance that no amount of professional success could have given me. The knowledge that I had faced one of my greatest fears, standing up to my family and walking away from toxic dynamics, had fundamentally changed how I viewed myself and my capabilities. The journey had not been easy. There were nights spent crying over family photos, questioning my decision to distance myself from the people who, despite their flaws, had been the center of my world for 28 years. There were moments of intense loneliness when celebrating achievements or holidays without the family connections most people take for granted. But these difficult moments were balanced by new connections and personal growth. I had built a chosen family of friends who celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported me through challenges without keeping score. I had learned to recognize my own value without external validation. And perhaps most importantly, I had discovered that setting boundaries was not selfish, but necessary for authentic relationships. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. After the failed attempt to enlist my help with Jake's job search, communication had been minimal. Occasional text messages on birthdays and holidays, brief updates about health concerns or family news. Neither side quite ready to address the deeper issues that had led to our estrangement, but neither willing to sever the connection entirely. Jake, surprisingly, had been the first to reach out in a meaningful way. 6 months after his startup collapsed, he sent an email that showed the first signs of genuine self-awareness I had ever seen from him. "I have been thinking about everything that happened last year," he wrote. "At the time, I was so focused on my own plans that I never stopped to consider how unfair the situation was to you. Looking back, I can see that I have been given advantages and support that you never received, and I took that for granted. I am sorry for my part in all of this, and I hope someday we can rebuild our relationship as siblings." His words, though not erasing the hurt, opened a door to a new kind of relationship between us. We began meeting occasionally for coffee, carefully navigating our shared history while trying to establish a connection based on mutual respect rather than the unbalanced dynamic of our childhood. During one of these meetings, Jake confessed that losing his startup had been a necessary wake-up call. "I always thought success would come easily because that is what Mom and Dad led me to believe. Failing so spectacularly made me realize I had no idea what I was doing. It was humbling, but probably the best thing that could have happened to me." He had eventually found a job at a marketing firm, starting at an entry-level position despite his prestigious degree. "It is not what I expected to be doing, but I am learning a lot. And for once, I am earning something on my own merit instead of having it handed to me." Watching my brother develop independence and self-awareness was bittersweet. I was proud of his growth while mourning the years of our relationship that had been distorted by our parents' unequal treatment. My parents themselves were slower to evolve. During a rare phone call with my mother, I sensed her struggling between defending past decisions and acknowledging the damage they had caused. "We always wanted what was best for both of you," she insisted. "Maybe we got some things wrong, but our intentions were good." "I know you believe that," I replied carefully. "But good intentions do not erase the impact of your actions. Jake and I were not treated equally, and that affected both of us in different ways." "You were always so capable, Brooke," she said, her voice softening. "We never worried about you the way we worried about Jake. Perhaps we took your strength for granted." It was not quite an apology, but it was the closest acknowledgement I had ever received that their treatment had been unbalanced. For now, it was enough to maintain a cautious, limited relationship while protecting the independence and self-worth I had worked so hard to build. The most profound change was not in my external circumstances, but in my understanding of myself. I had spent most of my life believing that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, or sacrificed enough, I would finally earn my parents' unqualified love and approval. Letting go of that belief was both painful and liberating. I realized that my worth is not determined by how others value me, even those who are supposed to love me unconditionally. I explained to my support group one evening. That knowledge has changed how I approach every relationship in my life. This insight led me to begin mentoring young women facing similar family dynamics or career challenges. Sharing my experience and offering the validation and support I had lacked helped transform my pain into something meaningful and constructive. One of these mentees, Zoe, a 22-year-old recent graduate struggling with overbearing parents who dismissed her career aspirations, sent me a message that brought tears to my eyes. "Talking with you has helped me find the courage to make my own choices even when they disagree. For the first time, I feel like my life belongs to me." Her words captured exactly what my journey had been about. Not revenge or rejection of my family, but reclaiming ownership of my life and choices. Learning that sometimes walking away from those who cannot see your worth is the only path to finding those who will. As I sit now in my apartment, watching the sunset paint the city in golden hues, I cannot say with certainty what the future holds for my relationship with my parents. Perhaps, with time and continued growth on all sides, we will find a way to build something healthier than what came before? Perhaps not. What I do know is that I have found a peace and self-acceptance that no external validation could provide. Sometimes, the most difficult choice is also the most necessary one. Sometimes, creating distance from those who should be closest to you is the only way to find yourself and build the life you deserve. The journey is not linear or simple, but it is profoundly worthwhile. Have you ever had to distance yourself from family for your own well-being? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more authentic conversations about family dynamics and personal growth. Share this with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth exists independently of others' recognition.